Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our Board of Education, our February 11th, 2025 meeting. May I ask everyone to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So just a quick housekeeping item, a reminder. As a part of our ongoing commitment to inclusive community engagement, we invite you joining virtually and those sending in any email questions or comments to SWR BOE Meeting at swr.k12.ny.us for inclusion during our second public comment period. And I do want to thank all of the audience that's here tonight. May I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Megan, second Henry. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 6-0. Next up is our superintendent report. Mr. Poole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. For the first part of my report, I'd like to turn it over to Jocelyn and Caitlin for the first part of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. A quick college update for me is that of the 10 universities I've applied to, I've been accepted to 6, and I'm waiting to hear from the rest. Currently, Case Western, Binghamton, and Northeastern are my top choices. I'm planning to pursue a career in business and major in accounting, and all of these schools have specialized programs that will be extremely beneficial for me. I've written several essays as part of the application process and done multiple interviews. The process has been difficult at times, but I wouldn't have been able to get through it so successfully without the help of Mrs. Seamus, Ms. Gilroy, and Mr. Malvagno. So on to the report. Some opportunities for student involvement. Tomorrow is the high school's parent-teacher conference night, and students are able to volunteer to help out through the National Honor Society. Unified bowling registration is open for students of any experience level. The season start date is February 24th, and sign-up is on Family ID. The Community Relations class is sponsoring a toiletry drive, partnering with Long Island Lending a Helping Hand. Boxes are currently at each of the Shoreham-Wading River schools until March 31st. And in the theater community, the student production, The Murderous Mansion of Mr. Uno, was a huge success and had its performances this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Congratulations to all the cast and crew on an amazing show. The Murderous Mansion of Mr. Uno was co-directed by Analia Clemente and Kyle Schiff. Thank you to Ms. Aegis, Mr. Bodnas, and Mr. Kasky for all their support. And in recent events, on January 25th, our high school's 2 robotics teams competed in the VEX 5 robotics competition qualifying tournament. Both teams made it to the elimination round. And Aiden Wang was recently accepted to the SUNY Old Westbury's Institute of Creative Problem Solving for Gifted and Talented. Additionally, Madeline Mayer was selected to the SUNY Old Westbury's Institute of Creative Problem Solving this academic year. Congratulations. And sports-wise, girls basketball won the title of League 6 champions, beating Mount Sinai 45-36, and they play March 3rd in the county semifinals.
Congratulations.
Yep. And boys basketball celebrated their senior night last week to bring their incredible season to a close. And Gavin Mangano has reached a milestone of getting 100 pins in wrestling. SWR will be hosting the Division II Wrestling County Championships on Friday, February 14th. And the cheer team will be competing in counties, and they're currently down in Florida for nationals. Charles Peterson and Joseph Lasquadro had outstanding performances with the Center Reach boys fencing team. The team finished 4th in the county. Charles Peterson finished his highly decorated career representing SWR on the Center Reach fencing team with a county championship in foil. He won the county championship in dramatic fashion in a 3-way fence-off. Congratulations to Charles on an outstanding high school career. Leighton Mangiamelli is the boys' long jump champion of the Suffolk County High School Small School Indoor Track and Field Championships. Spencer Lee is the boys' 3,200 meter champion at the Suffolk County High School Small School Indoor Track and Field Championships. Logan Jung took first place in the high jump event after clearing 6 feet 6 inches. And after their amazing performances at counties, several athletes in track and field are headed to state qualifiers. Morgan Lesowitz got 2nd place in shot put. Olivia Peso finished 8th place in the 3,000 meters. Giovanna Oliva got 12th place in the race walk, and our very own Jocelyn Nasazi finished 16th place in the 600 meters. Congratulations to all of our amazing athletes. And good luck to all our winter athletes in the postseason. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On to a few other happenings across the school district. Over in the middle school, 5th and 8th grade students participated in the prestigious MoMath competition at Brookhaven National Lab. They competed against and with students from other middle schools across Long Island. They found the competition both challenging and rewarding as they tackled abstract problems and worked collaboratively to solve them. Additionally, middle school students attended a digital footprint seminar that focused on the importance of maintaining a positive digital image and the long potential impacts on your digital footprint on college and career searches. Seminars were well received and very informative at the middle school. Over at Wading River, hats off, congratulations to the amazing, talented, can't be outdone fifth graders from Wading River School, all the faculty, staff, parents, and community members that supported them for an amazing performance of Alice in Wonderland. I know, congratulations to Mr. Verity, the director, Mrs. Levonick, Mrs. Kim DePola, the assistant directors, Mrs. Simichich, Mrs. Collins with choreography and music, Mr. Botnis, and the amazing high school tech crew who helped every child shine. It was absolutely a very special performance. It's a unique thing, the fifth grade play here in Shoreham-Wading River. I can't think of another district that replicates or does that every year with the level of engagement, enthusiasm, and joy that it brings to students. And I know I look forward to it every year. Just a note on that performance, there was a district high school student tech crew there. So there are now 27 students in the technology crew supporting theater programs at the high school. So there was a crew here of 13 or so students, and then I believe our very own Leah in the back was running another crew at the middle school for a student-run rehearsal production, running the lights, the sound, the network, all of that student-led under the direction of Mr. Botnis in the back. So hats off to everybody for the amazing performances this week. Also at Wading River, coming up this week, high school sustainability students will be coming to Wading River to teach children from Mr. Gansey and Mrs. Roberts' classes about hydroponics as they place their pre-grown seedlings into a pre-set-up grow tower. And the PTA Special Someone Dance will take place tomorrow, where children can bring a special parent or guardian to enjoy a wonderful evening together. Over at Miller Avenue, second grade students celebrated Lunar New Year by hosting a building parade. Students paraded through Miller Avenue carrying dragon flags as students cheered them on. I mentioned at the last meeting the Miller Avenue Super Bowl. You're probably wondering which grade won. I have that news for you tonight. The first grade won the Super Bowl contest. Yes, congratulations to the first graders. Students bring in food donations to support the local community. And really importantly, kindergarten registration is ongoing. It's very helpful to get as many names and students in as we plan for next year. If you have a child turning 5 years old prior to December 1st, please go to the district website and register them. And finally, on tonight's agenda, we have a legislative committee update. We have a great legislative committee. We have Ms. Sidewitz-Burns and Ms. Bettenhauser here tonight to share the legislative priorities the committee developed and a safety and security update from myself. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Appreciate that. Next up will be opportunity for board members. Anyone have anything they want to share? Okay. All good? Okay. Moving right along. Any statements from residents for agenda items only?
No, not this time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kirschus. Next up, we have student and staff recognitions. Mr. Parinello, our principal of our Wading River School, I think is here to introduce a bunch of VIPs, right?
Thank you so much for inviting us here. It's our pleasure to do it like Medley. So I just want to introduce Mr. Verity, Mrs. Levonick, and Mr. Paula, and they're going to take it away with the incredible children that are over here. They're going to take it to the next level. So come on, Mr. Verity.
I know, I said. Yeah.
Thank you. So I wanted to take a moment just to congratulate again the amazing fifth graders that I have this year. This performance was extremely demanding. The show we chose was extremely demanding, and they immediately rose to the challenge and were able to put on a really unforgettable show. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the students that are here this evening to give you guys a one-of-a-kind performance. They will be doing
That's adorable. Love it. What a big group we had tonight. Wow.
Good job. You are,
Absolutely.
the amount of work and effort and teamwork that goes together putting 140 children on the stage is incredible. Thank you, Board of Ed, thank you, District Office, thank you, parents, thank you, family, thank you, community, for making this happen each and every year. Congratulations, you're amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Parinello. Thanks, students, for sharing your wonderful talents with us tonight. What a great performance, and it's a good week to paint roses red, I have to tell you, from what I gather. Very good. Next up, we have any old business? No, so we'll move on. Reports and reviews. I'd like to ask, we're going to do a legislative committee update. Ms. Bittenhauser and Ms. Seidwitz-Byrne are chairpersons from our legislative committee, and our ex officio student members, Jocelyn and Caitlin, will have a little conversation about the legislative committee breakfast. Oh, got it? What's that? Yeah. Gina's right there, and then, yeah. Yeah. We're good.
Oh, we got the same folder. No way.
What's that?
We got the same folder.
There you go. How funny is that?
It's
Thanks for
fun.
being here. Thank you for the time tonight.
Good evening. My name is Jessie Seidwitz-Byrne, and I'm the chairperson for the Shoreham-Wading River Legislative Committee. I'm here with Gina Bettenhauser, a fellow member of the committee whom you'll hear from as well. We're here to present to you what our committee has been working to accomplish so far this year. It's important to mention that year after year, we analyze the needs of our district as they change and work with local and state officials to communicate how they can best serve our district, our children, and our community. We do this by analyzing the previous year's agenda, identifying emerging priorities and those which have been addressed, analyzing the priorities of other local groups, and then attending multiple meetings together to refine the priorities that fit the needs of our community. We all work as one to give a big voice to our small district in hopes that we will be represented and remembered when decisions are made that affect all of us here. We attend workshops and most recently the Longwood Legislative Breakfast, where we, with some of our own Shoreham-Wading River students, Mr. Poole, and board members, listen to presentations by the Executive Director of the Association of School Business Officials, the CEO of Eastern Suffolk BOCES, Regent Tillis, as well as local senators and assembly members who continue to advocate on behalf of public education. Gina and I will outline the legislative brochure that our committee will be presenting to both Senator Palumbo and Assemblywoman Giglio in the coming weeks. We will be discussing our district needs in order to maintain and bolster fiscal health, state mandates, school safety, and security.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Excuse me. So I'm going to be discussing, we have 3 legislative priorities this year, and one of them is bolstering our fiscal health. I'm going to take that one. Just look up just again. So the first bullet point is to expand unrestricted reserve fund allowance. The current restraint we are under right now is school districts are limited to a 4% cap on unrestricted reserves, while municipalities currently have no defined percentage limit for unrestricted reserves. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The need for change. So prudent fiscal management requires greater flexibility. It helps stabilize budgets and avoid sudden financial disruptions, and it protects the students and taxpayers from turbulent budget adjustments. So what we're requesting is that the cap be increased from 4% to 8% for unrestricted reserves. The next item is to create additional reserves for health insurance and special education. The rising costs of health insurance and special education expenses, they're increasing faster than our revenue growth is. We're finding a funding challenge. There's current budget constraints, which make it difficult to keep up with the rising costs. And our proposed solution is to establish a reserve fund dedicated to health insurance and special education. We believe that'll provide financial stability without relying solely on state aid or tax levy increases, and it will help the district to manage unpredictable expenses more effectively. It also ensures continued support and services for students without budget disruptions. The next item under fiscal health, sorry, is to fulfill commitment to foundation aid. New York State must not close budget gaps by reducing the foundation for our district. The schools must rely on consistent and predictable foundation aid to ensure educational stability. We believe annual increases should fairly reflect rising costs, preventing financial shortfalls, and stable funding ensures a quality education, necessary programs, and essential resources for all our students. The next item is to allow full security cost exclusions if aid is not provided. New York State cannot provide dedicated security funding. We believe the districts need flexibility in order to cover those costs. Our proposed solution is to exclude all year-over-year security cost increase from tax cap calculations. And the key cost areas for exclusion are security, personnel and staffing expenses, mental health, professional salaries, infrastructure and technology upgrades, building hardening and access controls, which would strengthen entry points and securing facilities, emergency response, equipment and training, and surveillance and monitoring systems. This exclusion ensures district can adapt to evolving security needs without sacrificing educational program. Hold on a second. We feel the impact will be that this exclusion ensures district can adapt to evolving security needs without sacrificing educational programs, seeking voter approval for essential safety measures, and facing financial roadblocks in protecting students and staff. And we're looking to preserve our local control, which would empower school boards' autonomy to make community-specific decisions while adhering to state standards. It'll also support the development of locally aligned curriculum that reflects community needs while meeting state requirements. And it'll enable greater flexibility in funding decisions to address local challenges without excessive state restrictions, such as the use of New York State UPK aid. We feel that the impact of preserving the local control will ensure responsive decision-making, better resource management, and education tailored to our community priorities.
Another area that we're looking at is to fully fund state mandates. So when the state puts forth a mandate to the school district, it becomes a legally binding requirement. With that, money must be spent to execute these directives. Unfortunately, the state does not furnish these funds, and it directly impacts our school district's budget and how money must be allocated. We're asking for all mandates to be fully funded. We're also asking, once again, for the electric bus mandates timeline to be reevaluated. The current deadlines are unrealistic given the many complications that we feel have not yet been resolved, such as adequate power grids on Long Island all the way to supply and demand issues. Under school safety, we're I think you covered most of that, right? Whoa. Yeah, it kind of like blends together. So we're asking for dedicated state funding when it comes to the safety and security of our children in the schools. Schools require adequate security personnel with ongoing training, mental health professionals, infrastructure and technology upgrades and maintenance, and emergency response systems. And when it comes to security staffing, if this cannot be fulfilled, we're asking that all year-over-year security costs increase that I have outlined here and others be excluded from the tax cap. We're also looking for funding for UPK to fit the needs of our district and our community, and this will help serve our youngest learners since, as we all know, scaffolding the learning of our pre-kindergarten students will only ensure that they have what they need in order to grow and learn so that one day they will take our seats and represent our community just as we are here today. And that's our recap.
Thank you for that update. Just stay up here for a second, ladies, if you don't mind. 1 minute. So Caitlin and Jocelyn had the opportunity, thank you for both of you attending the legislative breakfast. I didn't know if you wanted to share any observations with the committee or with the community, anything that you wanted to kind of express, I'd appreciate any update.
We've never been to a legislative breakfast before, and the experience I'd say was pretty educational. We learned a lot about what goes on behind closed doors, what we didn't know before, just as students. I think we learned a lot about finding funding, how difficult that can be, challenges, and figuring out where to put it to best fit the needs of students. And we also learned more about the electric bus mandates, which I'm sure Jocelyn, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, we got to learn a lot about like different like policies that were being focused on, especially with like schools, especially those like the bus mandates, electric bus mandates, and like how schools can't really fund for them because of the fact that it'll take a lot of funding to implement these mandates and kind of like replace all of the buses that we already have that are diesel, which would not be very realistic.
Yeah. We support pushing the deadline back.
Yeah.
I just want to say
There
that.
you
We
go.
support it. Yeah. Overall, pretty educational experience. And if I wasn't graduating, I would be going back next year. So
There you go. Well, we,
maybe in the future.
yeah, absolutely, maybe in the future, but I thought it was great exposure for you, not only just as ex officio board members, but just to see how, I hate to say it, the sausage is sometimes made, how these things come together, which is legislative priorities, how our committee has put together what we believe our specific needs, wants, desires are, and then expressing that through the voice of the community that's here. Thank you for both of you being here tonight and expressing what those are, and then you attending as well. It was interesting for me to see in the room how many other school communities feel the same ways that we do. And it's funny how politicians can sit up there and they all agree when they're all in public session like that in front of us all. They all agree, but behind the scenes, how things actually get done is a whole other story between funding or priorities or other legislative priorities that their quote-unquote policies have. So it was just interesting. So I want to thank you both for being there and hope you got some good experience from it. I don't know if you have any questions or anything else that you wanted to add, Jesse or Gina? Anything? Okay. You do. Mike has a question. See,
Sorry.
someone has a question.
Yeah, just a quick one. So I noticed that a lot of the priorities are similar to last year's.
Yes.
So how often do we review last year's priorities
question.
to this year's going forward and modify or change them? And what's the expectation that some of these priorities actually get enacted on by our legislators?
That's a good question. Do you want to, either of you want to take a shot at that?
So every year we look at the previous year's priorities, and we kind of assess which ones have kind of resolved and which ones are still issues. We kind of weed out what we feel is realistic in, our audience, which are, our local politicians. And we have been lucky enough to have an audience with them, whether it was through a Zoom call or in person. And so what we focus on and what we push for year after year, we kind of tried to consolidate this year and say, okay, well, how many of these things can fall under this topic or that one? And then we
So
just
there's
kind of...
been movement over the years on some of these priorities? Because it looks like they're very similar to last year's, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, unfortunately is right.
But if I'm not mistaken, I think we did retire one this year where we had kind of combined it with a previous one because we felt that there was enough momentum in that direction.
Do you remember?
So,
off the top
but
of your
it's
head?
multi-year.
I can give a couple, which is establishing a TRS reserve. That was an issue we had years ago that resolved. The changing the annual professional performance review
Yeah, the APPR
teacher
process,
evaluation process. That was changed last year. That came off, and there's some guidance and regulations emerging. But it is a matter of putting in front of our legislators over and over and over again, not just us, but as you mentioned, other school districts, that these priorities become front and center. And we look forward to meeting with them.
And also, if I could just add into that as well, the priorities that we're looking at, we're now looking at different angles of how we can catch the ear of different politicians based on who they are, what their focus is, and then how we can kind of spin our approach to, well, this is what we're looking for, and this is why you can do it. And not only that, but this is how you can do it. So we're kind of looking at that approach now of not just saying, we want this, and we're now saying, we want this, and this is how you can make
So
it
the
happen
subject
for
may be
us.
the same, but the content may be different.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of these take years, right? Because
Yeah.
it
They
is
do.
politics, so
Right.
going through it
They do it.
takes a couple of years to really try to get the momentum. And putting them as priorities for us just highlights that for other school districts, they have legislative priorities that sometimes go in line with us. I know you make the trip up to Albany often to try to, advocate for us. I know you have in the past, so thank you for that. But, sometimes it takes a while to get these legislative priorities, in focus.
And it's good for them to hear it over and over again, to know that we're not giving up on these ideas, and these are things that are important to us.
And I want to thank you, Ms. Hyburns, for putting out the letters to all of the different, I'll call it our assembly person, our senator, the governor, related to our priorities this year, specific around UPK and some other items. So, Henry, I think it comes back to awareness. I think there wasn't one of the politicians up there that weren't aware of the issues. It's addressing it and getting the lobbying efforts and continuing to put pressure on the things that we would want as a community and as parents and,
The
community
repetition,
members.
the
I'm sorry?
repetition is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hearing it from all angles.
That's right. So it helps.
Thank
And
you
I-
for your commitment.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you both. Thank you for both being here tonight. Appreciate it very much. Okay. Okay, next up under our reports and reviews, we have our safety and security update presented by Mr. Poole.
Good evening. Thank you for the time. It's hard to come back to safety and security after being in Wonderland for a few
Right.
minutes
Right.
along the way. And I want to thank Ms. Seidwitz-Burns and Ms. Bettenhauser for their commitment. Longtime committee members, and we look forward to meeting with the legislators on a host of issues, but not the least of which is safety and security, which is ongoing and dramatic cost to the school district and our number one priority. It is on our agendas every day, safety and security. So just a brief update. For additional information, this is links to the district-wide safety plan, if somebody from home was following along. The September 10th, 2024 security update, the school emergency information guides, a lot of information and resources to better understand our safety and security position in the school district. I won't go over all those today. But I will give a little update from September 10th, some additional security steps. That was some of our security goals for this year. Additional silent alarm training for the RAVE app. That's the ability for staff to notify emergency services silently off of their mobile devices with a fantastic free app called the RAVE app. So we've continued to press for enrollment. Emergency safety drills, additional security film installation across the district to harden our exterior, upgraded, added security cameras, the installation of additional interior strobe lights. You may notice the strobe light notification system on the exterior of the buildings. Some spots where sound was loud, like a band or an orchestra room, there have been strobe lights and that sound system placed in those spaces where it may be difficult to hear an alarm or an alert. Additional fencing projects. Spent a lot of time on developing a district threat assessment protocol, upgrading it, revising it, adopting it, training it. It's in place, so we have a strong system in place for threat assessment. And we are currently taking a deeper dive into after-school protocols, meeting with our security guards, taking some observations and surveys. So that is underway. And then this year, a review of armed guards in the school district. And the review of armed guards is not a new topic in the school district. This has come up multiple times. I do recall considering it when I arrived here in the school district. It was not something that that many health and safety committee members felt was something that matched the culture and climate of the school district. So, but that review has come to place every couple of years. The review happened again this year. You may recall we started the school year off with a tragedy in Georgia. And we had some requests from the community to re-review the topic of armed guards. It did go to the Health and Safety Committee meeting a couple of times, and we have reviewed that as a school district. Just to point out, armed guards in Long Island schools, across the country, about 50% of schools have an armed security or armed officer on their campuses. And not too long ago, there was a Newsday article. You could see the list of districts that had armed guards. About 20% of Long Island districts utilize armed guards or armed officers. One of the number one drivers for the use of armed personnel in a school district is response time. We have wonderful law enforcement partners, but the data shows that in an unfortunate event of an incident, the response time doesn't match the length of the event. So depending on where an officer is going to depend on how quickly they get to a building. And if you look over to the right, which is from the Secret Service, the duration of the attacks, the majority of attacks are under 5 minutes. And while the response time, the majority of response times are 5 minutes or longer. And those are a driving reason for the use of armed guards in school district on Long Island and in the country. So after review, after careful consideration, it's not an easy thing for me to do, especially after Wonderland. And honestly, I have evolved on this topic myself. I want to say 8 years ago, I couldn't imagine recommending armed guards, but this issue has not gone away in schools. It's a concern. We live in a safe and supportive community, we do, but the unknowns and the unpredicted events do happen. And, you know, external armed guards at all of our buildings, I won't share any other details that might take place in our implementation, is a layer of defense for us. Why? As I mentioned, threats remain. They continue to increase. You can see the chart on the right. I mentioned response times. We are on our own at the outset of an emergency, and you know, we're told that time and time again. Whether we had civilian response for active shooter training a couple of years back, the enforcement officer says, you need to learn this because you are on your own. I attend advisory panel meetings. They stress the importance of drills and knowing what to do in an emergency. However, it always comes with, you need to know this because for the first 5 minutes or so, you are going to be on your own. This fall, there was a local matter where, you know, there was a threat unresolved in the neighboring community around here as well. That was unresolved. We were on our own for defense. The Health and Safety Committee has a level of acceptance with it. Nobody's thrilled with the idea. I will say that on my own, I've done some research on this with local neighboring school districts. You know, one of the concerns that does come forth is that's terrible for our school climate. You know, it's going to change the culture, the climate, you know, that feeling of joy and energy. And armed guards have been in local schools for over 5 years now, and it has not been a culture or a climate changer. They've kind of, with the right training and right approach, have blended into the school and have not impacted in a negative way culture or climate based on my own phone calls and interviews of superintendents in neighboring school districts. Should we move forward with armed guards, the next steps for the school district administration would be to develop an RFP with the specifics of what that program would entail, bring a finalized version of the RFP for approval. After approval of the RFP, go out to bid for RFP results and then interview candidates, award the contract to an outside vendor at some point over the summer, and then implement the armed guards in September. And that would move us to, we have been detect, deter, delay, deny. That actually gives us defend, you know, for that in the, which I would hope we would never use the armed guards, but it is a layer of defense and an immediate response in the event that the horrific happens.
So, Mr. Poole, I think that all of us on this board have worked with you for a number of years. I've worked with you for 6 years. I know that, first and foremost, you've always said it is safety and security of our students, our staff, and just everyone in and around the buildings. I know this took a lot of thought process on your part to come to this conclusion. Remind us again, so the next step, if we move forward with this, would be to go out to an RFP. Give me the steps again real quick.
So the next steps would be we would draft an RFP with the specifics that we would go out on the street for, that the vendor would have to reply and confirm that they can meet those standards that we set forth in the proposal. That would be approved by the Board of Education at the first meeting in March. Subsequent to that, we would put them out for a while to see what responses we get back, and then interview, vet the vendors that reply, and make an award sometime in early summer or late spring with the goal of having them in place in September.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay. Anyone have any other thoughts, questions?
No, just, I've been on the Health and Safety Committee for almost 10 years, and since you've been here, every year we've made advancements to our, security. From installing the guard booth at the high school, to crash gates at the schools, to perimeter fencing. I've always loved the neighborhood look of our schools, not wanting it to feel like a prison.
Yeah.
I think we've done a great job balancing that. But like you mentioned, some of the recent events, local, as well as some other schools, seeing some of the data and understanding that having armed guards is going to change the culture for our students. Obviously, having that response time local is a big deal, and I think it's time. So thank you for.
Well, you make a point. This is not news that hasn't been out there. But in the last 8 months, there have been 3 loaded pistols found in schools within 30 miles of here. So it's not. There doesn't seem the way to keep them out. That's definitive. So unfortunately, and this is difficult for me to recommend. We'd rather be recommending something else.
I just wanted to echo what Mike said, and you said it really well. And I recall years ago, maybe 8 years ago, attending a local school district's board meeting. There was a time.
Couple of us, yeah.
Yeah, we went together, and that was our biggest takeaway, was how could we recommend this for our community, or vote on this in our community when there's a long list of other items that on a practical level would directly impact the health and safety of our students. And I'm really proud of the amount of effort that this community has put into truly looking at those practical steps and implementing them. This does seem, unfortunately, like the logical next step. I feel, I'm with you. I feel like 8 years ago I would have, we decided it was not the right move for us, and unfortunately, the confiscation of those weapons locally, it just made us feel like we don't have recourse at this point if without that added layer of protection. And I applaud the legislative committee for advocacy in this area, and I feel like it shouldn't be the responsibility of our taxpayer to do this, but I think our hands are tied at this point.
I guess it was back in 2017, the 3 of us went and we saw the
Was that
presentation.
the date?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm just looking at the list that you showed, Mr. Poole, and I guess to echo both of what you both said, we've gone systematically through every type of process here for detecting, for delaying, for deterring, denying. And, we're in the defense circle at this point, and we've tried a few of those other items. We put them in place. This is, at this point, not an easy decision to make, because I think it does change the culture a little bit. But, the world's changed since 2017 as well, as we've seen with the presentations. And I think that, for the safety of everyone on campus, this is something that, hard choice to make, but I also support it, so.
Yeah, I think some of our neighboring districts have been very successful with the implementation of armed guards. So I think, I know that was one of the things we were nervous about, changing the culture and how it affects the students. But I'm sure you've had conversations with neighboring districts who have armed guards, and I don't recall them being having any issues since then, that they've been on ground, so. Like I said, I think it's just we've exhausted, or we went through all the other options, and here we are.
Response time is so important, and I think Shoreham is in a unique location geographically, in the sense that I think the response times are even longer here, opposed to maybe further up the island. So I think we're at that point that we have to take a look at.
So you have our support, Mr. Poole. We look forward to hearing more about
So-
what this looks like and seeing us go through the RFP process and taking the next steps toward it. Right? Anyone else have any? So
What's the process for community input?
in terms of Mike
The
asking about...
presentation,
Yeah, I think that, I'll throw it out there, Jerry. I think that we'll go through the RFP, right? Learn a little bit more about what the security piece would entail. I think Mr. Poole will come back with more than likely an update on whether it's the cost of the services they'll provide, Mike, right? So part of the budget planning process would definitely need to consider the cost of the security guards, right, to have them. And I think ultimately, I think we would share with the community the next steps on implementation. I think that would be the logical next step. Jerry? You tell
As
me.
much as, when we get to implementation, as much as we're comfortable sharing about the
Yeah, of
program.
course.
But I think
Of
in the Board of Education highlights, we'll make a note about the recommendation for armed guards.
Yep.
Anybody listening, more than welcome to, I know,
Yeah.
always email the Board of Education, but
Absolutely.
email my office as well, or give me a call. I'm happy to speak with anybody as well about it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm would hope by early March to have an RFP together for approval. That'd be the next step.
it's not just emails, I mean, obviously emails are the best way, but, conversations with us, we're in the community, we're elected by the community, so if you have
Yeah.
concerns, we're all willing to talk and share your thoughts to the administration, so.
Or come, the next
come,
meeting is
yeah.
February 25th.
Absolutely.
Community members can come to the February 25th board meeting and share their thoughts.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole.
Yeah.
Next up on our agenda is our votes and resolutions. First will be our approval of our December treasurer's report. May I get a motion? Jamel? Second. Mike? Any discussions or questions? All in favor? 6-0. Next up is our Board of Education resolutions. We have one of them, the approval of the academic calendar for our 2025-2026 school year, 2425127. May I get a motion? Megan, second Katie. Any discussion or question on the calendar? All in favor? 6-0. Next up will be our curriculum and instruction resolutions. There is one of them, 2425128. May I get a motion, please? Henry, second Katie. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Do you have a question?
Do you have a-
Oh,
Okay. Who's anticipating that? All in favor? All in favor? 6-0. Next up will be our human resources resolutions. There are two of these. Is it okay if I take them as a block? Thank you. It's 2425129 and 2425130. May I get a motion, please? Katie, second. Mike, all in favor? 6-0. Next up is our business and operations resolutions. I have one of these, 2425131. May I get a motion, please? Jim L., Katie, second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 6-0. Next up is our personnel. May I get a motion? Henry. Megan, second. Any discussion or questions on personnel? All in favor? 6-0. Next up is communications. Just wanted to remind the community, or are you doing this, Georgette, or am I doing this? I'm doing this, right? Okay, thank you, sorry. Just wanted to remind the community, deadline for resident petitions for proposal. There's a deadline for resident petitions for proposals, or excuse me, for propositions need to be submitted to the district 90 days prior to the annual meeting as per our policy 1050. That date is February 19th, 2025. The number of signatures on the petition that is required is 32. That is 5% of the total number of voters at the last annual meeting, 651 voters in the last annual meeting. It is the sole responsibility of the petitioner to obtain all the requirements. Okay. Any other discussion from the board? Okay. Ms. Kirschers, any additional comments from residents?
We had one lady, I don't know if she left. I guess she
Okay. All righty.
They could always send us an email.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if that resident who came, thanks for coming to the meeting tonight, wants to just shoot us an email, or we'll be happy to take the question.
Do we want to check the lobby? There was
You want to do
childcare.
that? We are full service here, I love this. Oh, I'm glad she came out. So how about that, Jerry? Are we on a 2-hour delay? I haven't asked you. Are we on a 2-hour delay?
Oh, as a
tomorrow?
reminder, but
Oh.
we are on a 2-hour delay
We are on a
tomorrow.
2-hour delay tomorrow. Just figured I'd get that out there. I didn't ask him.
See Henry's happy in the
There were
back there.
silent cheers in the back from the students.
Something could be added.
Is this where you sing, "Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow"? I'm just kidding. No, okay. All right, well, thank you to that resident. Thanks for the residents here in attendance tonight, too. Appreciate seeing the live audience. It's great. Oh, sure.
If we have an issue, if I understand what you were just saying at the end, we have to like sign a petition to get you guys to talk about it at a meeting?
No, sorry.
You can come up.
Come up to the microphone. We'll answer your question. Just introduce yourself and where you're from.
You can either write your name down that you want to
Yeah.
come up at the end of the meeting, or you can just come up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
freely come up.
It's simple.
My name is Erica Singer, my husband's behind me, Jeff Singer. I had written some emails
Yes.
Previously to you guys.
Nice to meet you, Ms.
We're
Singer and
rookie
Mr.
parents in the community, so this
Yes.
is kind of our first go at it.
Sure.
We have 2 daughters. Our oldest daughter is right now in kindergarten, and she went through the UPK program in 23, 24. And we have a younger one that's 3 years old. And we're advocating for UPK. That's kind of why we're here and showing up. We thought it was going to be more on the agenda. That's why I'm kind of asking this question, to see what
Sure.
it takes to address you guys, the board. We've gotten some information from the both of you. I think Alan and Tom both had helped me out a little bit, kind of learning the process and advocating with legislation to see what the process is now. And my husband had done some research as far as the budget previous years compared to what is proposed for the coming year.
Sure.
And through our research, we sort of found some, uncovered some things that we, I guess, misunderstood. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Really, we were just trying to figure out why, or what the process is as far as, the state aid, and then also, what comes out of the budget or what other funds that are allotted for it, because, it was so successful with our oldest daughter. Obviously, we're being biased and trying to, advocate for our youngest to do the same thing. And then obviously, we grew up both at Mount Sinai, and we saw the success that they had, and neighboring districts that are able to, run that program off the same or ratioed state aid that they're getting. I talked to the people at the state. I know it's based on per pupil and everything's different from, east to west. But basically, I kind of jumped into this a couple days ago, and then I'm just trying to find the answers as to, what, and this might not be a question that you guys are ready for here, but I just figured I'd ask, what the process is, what, why yes, why no here in Wading River, and, if there's anything we can do to,
100%.
to help.
Right, I mean, something we've uncovered is that in Suffolk County, we are one of the only districts that does not have UPK. And in addition to us, it is Massapequa, Fire Island, and Shelter Island. So in comparing our district to neighboring communities, there is no reason why, if they are successful in implementing that program, rookie or vet program, why we are not, if we're allocated the same amount of money per pupil, if you divide it out proportionally. As far as we're understanding, Shoreham-Wading River did not even apply for the grants. And in previous board meetings last year, it was suggested, and even in some of your emails, that the funding that was previously put forth was being quote-unquote retired or expired, which is actually not the case. They've actually combined, so it's one conjoined grant, consolidated rather. So it's still actually given to us, if not more money than previous years. And it is written out that each district would be responsible for about 10% of the margin. So we just want to know why neighboring districts are able to come up with that and we are not. And that lies on more of the board as opposed to lying on legislation, which is where I think there's some discrepancy. I know there is a lot of discrepancy in the community. Some people support it and some people don't. I think the lack of support from community comes from people that think that it's going to come from taxpayers' money, where it is such a small percentage of the actual change in amount in the budget that it's a very low impact to the taxes overall. So I think it's something worth addressing.
No, first, thanks for being here. Nice to meet you in person.
Yes, nice to meet you as well.
Lots of good questions. I'll take a stab at a few of them for a moment.
Sure.
If you think about the state allocation, so each year, between foundation aid and other aids that we do receive as a school district, there was 2019, 2020, when did the first UPK funding come out, Jerry? I'm just trying to fact check myself.
Maybe 5 years ago.
So 2020, right? Was it about?
It was
Yeah.
36 times 5,400. I
Yeah.
believe that was the initial allocation.
Trying to remember, is that, so
But don't
ultimately.
fact check me on that.
No, it's okay. So we were given, the state basically came up with a formula, and ours was at $5,400 per pupil. What the district at the time did was, we were within COVID funding. We had grants related to COVID, and felt during those years that our youngest were probably more or less kind of stuck at home, not interacting socially and whatnot. So we used some of those COVID relief funds, Ursula, what am I getting? Give me the names, ARP?
And ESSER.
ARP and ESSER, I was pretty close, right? Okay. So there are two different grant fundings. We use those funds to allocate toward, how many seats? 80 seats roughly? I think it was?
76 and 72.
Okay, close. 72 and 76. So we, as a conscious board, as a budget process, put those funds from those grants, setting aside and set up our own, where 2 classrooms were within our building and 2 were with St. Anselm's, right? So we didn't have all the space necessary, but we carved out 2 in the Wading River building. So we allowed that to happen for 3 years?
Just to clarify, Tom, so we had the UPK funding from the state.
Correct,
There was a shortfall.
correct.
So we used the grants to kind of close the gap
Correct.
entirely.
That's right.
No application that we failed to file.
So I spoke with the guy at the USAID that does UPK, and so basically we break down the executive budget from 23, 24, or I should say 24, 25, and compare it with 25, 26 of the upcoming year, coming from the state. Shoreham-Wading River is the only one with Shelter Island and
With a goose egg.
Fire Island being, being zero for the allocated funds for universal pre-K. And then it has BOCES, it has, this is all the executive budget.
Right.
So from that point, then my question was, why was Shoreham-Wading River? And again, we're novices at this, so I was comparing it to Mount Sinai, Miller Place, Rocky Point, and everybody had hundreds of thousands of dollars allotted for UPK. And it basically came out too similar.
Yeah, you're saying that. So you're not wrong. So let me take it fast forward. Fast forward was, we're not using those funds because the state allocation of $5,400 doesn't cover the cost of the program.
Okay, but, sorry to
please,
interrupt,
yeah, no.
but why does it work for a town like Mount Sinai and not work for Wading River?
Correct.
Because they have a different allocation. Does anyone know off the
Exactly.
top of their
Same
head?
slope
It
program.
was the exact same 5,400.
And it is the same
Oh,
allocation.
they are receiving 5,400?
So
That
for
I didn't
example,
know.
just
Yep.
again, from my research,
Yep.
they're receiving 5,400 as well. And then I went into their budget for this year, and they took out $28,000 in the regular school budget, I guess, to cover the additional cost. They got them
Yep.
$297 allotted, or allocated from the state, and then they took $28,000 from the budget. They put that together, about approximately $330,000, and they run, and because our nieces are there, they run 54 kids. So 54 times 5,400 gets you right to that $330.
Got it. So let's say that premise exists. In our district, those numbers, we went out for RFP just for knowledge this year, and we came back with, what was the per pupil cost?
So, right now, there's no space in the school district.
Well, we know
If-
that, yep.
if
So
you
we're
are-
unable
If you
to-
are
Yep.
a school district that has room, there is a vendor called Scope.
Right.
And if you have a classroom, then the additional cost on an individual student is under $1,000. So if you have an open room and you contract with Scope Educational Services, you could provide UPK. Of course, you have to take care of the room and the custodial
Sure.
stuff, all that.
All the-
But the per pupil cost from Scope is under $1,000 above the grant. So our grant allocation is $5,400.
Right.
Right, Scope is under $6,400 per student. So if you had a room of 18 students, you would do maybe the class would cost the district $18,000. So
Right.
we don't have any open rooms, K
So
through
we have no-
5.
we have
Why
no-
was there open rooms last year?
That's based on enrollment and sort of special education needs. Sometimes the number of self-contained or RISE classrooms changes.
This is not a budget issue, this is we have
So,
no
well, it's
space.
definitely space, but I'll give you a little more information. So the other part of that is that I can answer two questions for you. I can surmise for other school districts that the UPK funding began in the early 2000s.
Right.
If districts got that into their budget pre-tax cap, then they would have just had to carry the incremental cost increases along the way.
Sure.
This district didn't get any UPK funding until about 5 years ago, and it started with about 36 students. As Mr. Sheridan noted, the Board of Education coupled it with federal grant dollars related to COVID
Right.
to run a program for
Right, but the
a
district
few
didn't
years.
apply for that this year.
What's that?
The district didn't apply for that
So
this
whatever
year.
was
It
The
the
allocated-
use,
district that
so
did
the,
not.
so the use of the $513,000, it's a reimbursement. You have to run a program.
Sure.
Pay for it, and then get reimbursed at $5,400 a student. We did go out to RFP for it. It's locally, there are some seats available, maybe between 50 to 60 seats that are available locally between some of our local UPKs, but the price is really $8,000 per student. And that would just cover incoming kindergarten class is about 130, 135.
What do you mean
So there's-
locally? Can you clarify what you mean by that?
I mean local, within a fair driving distance. You probably know some of the UPK providers locally that are within, I'm going to say within.
So you're saying
within
Shoreham-Wading
a-
River sponsoring at that location, essentially?
So, yes,
That's
students would
right.
go to that location, and the district would, could use.
Reimburse, yeah.
Yes, so we can pay an outside vendor
Right,
for
which is
kids to go to a
significantly more
program
expensive.
off of campus
Than school.
to get.
So then really, it's not a
UPK.
budget issue at all, it's a space issue, because otherwise, if you had the space for 4 classes like you did last year, you would take the allocated money of $513,000, find the other $50,000, and have a UPK program.
That would be a decision at the time of putting a budget together
Sure.
along the way.
And
but
along
the-
those lines, if it's space, why can't you go from what was 4 sections down to 2 sections? So at least you're offering UPK for half of the qualifying community instead of 0.
But in both of the buildings this year,
no
the rooms are full. We just got,
about
Miller
St.
Avenue,
Anselm's,
we
though?
just got the music program was in the library.
Correct.
They split the library for a couple years. We just got that out by putting, you probably know, we put the music program into the art room, and we put the art room, Miller Avenue, into it's working. Kids have a space for art, but it's not the same as if it
Right.
being in that full-size art classroom. So it's definitely a space issue. It is easier for, I suspect our neighboring districts that have, are allocating maybe $28,000 in their budget towards the UPK program are contracting with Scope and having it inside of their buildings
Right.
and having that Scope value.
Which is what we had last year,
Which is,
with our
yes, we
library,
had
right.
a couple at Scope and a
That's right,
couple at St.
2 and
Anselm's.
2.
Is there anything that can be done to to assist or to progress or to continue to, try to move this train forward, or is it just stalled because we don't
No,
have space?
we sat at the legislative committee on Saturday morning. It was the first time that I heard legislators clearly articulate, understand and say, yes, we have to address this and lift the cap. Because the value that, when we got the UPK funding for the first time 5 years ago, the value of that was at the 2006 value per
But
student.
even if they were to lift the cap, you're saying that Shoreham will never have room for it?
We wouldn't, but the full value of the grant would cover the 50, 60 seats that are off of campus completely. So that value would provide the community 50 to 60 UPK seats at no cost to the district and at no cost to the families that win the lottery. That's the other piece. It
Right, we
wouldn't be for,
understand that process.
it wouldn't be for everybody. It would just be for those lucky enough to win the lottery. We've also advocated for, I don't think anybody would disagree, why can't we take the neediest families in a lottery system and take care of those families first and then run the lottery? So that,
Yeah, and as new parents, it just seemed, odd that all of a sudden, it was working, we got to enjoy the benefits of it last year.
Yeah.
And then, our second daughter now would be eligible for it next year, or at least for the lottery. So then doing the research and seeing the other school districts succeeding with the program, and then seeing that we're not even taking the allotted money from the state and from the USAID, who, has responded to us by saying that, I guess New York State's doing 5 years ago, they said it wouldn't have been odd because about 50% of the districts had UPK, but now we're almost at 95% in New York State. So that goose egg that we saw, that line item, was just odd because all the other local districts did take it and used it to whatever extent, wherever they else they had to pull from, grants or COVID money or actual budget. We just saw that zero, just trying to figure out the answer as to why. Obviously, it seems that they know, the state knows that 5,400 is not going to cover the cost of running the program. But then when we saw Mount Sinai doing it for 6,100 per pupil, based on the numbers of the budget and the
Has to be,
allotted aid.
has to be that
Has to be
scope.
scope.
It is,
Has to be
it is.
scope.
It's the same teachers that did the
Literally
scope
the same
program
teachers.
here are teaching my niece
Yeah,
now. in Mount
and they
Sinai.
were fantastic.
And they were great.
They were
That's why we're
yes.
here. I mean, if it was a program that didn't work, we wouldn't be
It
fighting
just
for
seems
it.
disappointing that out of all of Suffolk County, we're the only
Right.
district that doesn't
And
have
that
it.
space is really the issue versus budget. But, if it was one thing, if it was 9,000 and had to be allotted to, scope wasn't available or whatever the case was, we understand that's a huge jump. But when you're talking about a couple $100 per pupil over, the allotted number that the state is throwing at us because they're advocating hard for UPK throughout the state, that's one of their big agendas, I guess, over the last 5 years. I guess it'd probably be easier to fight budget than fight space, but it's super disappointing if it's space.
And it's really both. The space is the primary challenge, and then you heard Mr. Poole, then it's budget.
Sure.
So they kind of go together. If you don't have
Right.
the space and you don't have the budget, so we have two.
So
two
lifting the
issues.
cap, really, the request that you guys have made really makes no difference, because if they lift the cap,
Well,
you give
It
500,000.
wouldn't
would
be,
make it-
it wouldn't be in a, I'm sorry,
Yeah, sorry.
it wouldn't be.
It would
in
just
our
be
bu-
for outside
It would just be
UPK
out of, it
areas.
wouldn't be in our
Right.
buildings, it would
the
be
building.
at a
Right.
local vendor who had some seats available.
Okay. All right, we appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
questions. Thank you guys.
thanks for coming out.
Thank you
and-
for coming.
Of course.
Nice to meet you. Okay.
Would you like to speak or sign up?
No, you
No, come on up.
He tells me, talk too much. But it's been quite a time, so I figured I'd come out. And state aid is also your own money, so it's a matter of how we spend it. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, community, administration. Thank you for your time and the work you do to support our schools. I come before you tonight as both a parent and an advocate for making the best possible investments in our children's education, starting with the youngest learners in our district. First, I want to express my appreciation for tonight's legislative committee update. I applaud the advocacy efforts on behalf of our schools, and I truly value the work being done to represent our district's interests. That said, I would respectfully disagree with the idea that more money is the solution. More money is just more taxes. What we truly need is better utilization of the resources we already have and a reprioritization of spending to focus on what matters most, our students' education and the facilities that support them. It's up to the Board of Education to do that and the community to respectfully demand it. Many surrounding districts already offer universal pre-K, as you heard tonight, taking full advantage of the state grant funding available to them. Why should our district do any less? The state is providing this funding as an incentive, and we have the opportunity to maximize the number of pre-K seats without placing an additional burden on local taxpayers. These grant dollars are meant to be used, and leaving money on the table means denying children access to crucial early childhood education opportunities. Anyone who has Lysol, maybe. Beyond the educational benefits, expanding pre-K access would provide significant financial relief for many families in our district. Private pre-K is a major expense, and utilizing state funding to its fullest extent would ease that burden. The very families who would benefit are the same ones who pay exorbitant taxes into our school year after year, and I believe they're probably some of the families sitting in this room tonight. And I know we always hear it's a matter of who turns out to these meetings. So those who are listening online, I'm not home, so there's probably no one. But those who are in the room should know you have to come here, because every time what they do is they look to the audience and who's here and who's representing these facts and who's representing issues. So it's important that we show up. That's why I'm here with my love. Offering these families the savings without raising local costs is a responsible and meaningful way to give back. And when I talk about families, I don't just mean parents. I mean grandparents, aunts, uncles, extended family members who help raise and care for our children. I include in that group my own family, who plays a huge role in my children's lives. The joy of Braden's face when he hears that Uncle Vinny is coming over says it all. Family support is invaluable, and making pre-K more accessible would lift the financial burden off so many of these loved ones who help care for and nurture our children every day. I understand that budget decisions require balancing many priorities. Our general budget, which is heavily funded by the state, should be leveraged to ensure, and the state is us, should be leveraged to ensure we provide full access to pre-K for as many children as possible. Investing in early education pays dividends. Children who attend, he's heard enough. Children who attend high-quality pre-K programs are better prepared for school. Oh, I gotta get you to the other side. Leading to long-term academic success. As a parent with two children in the district, one at Miller Ave and another at Wading River, I have been engaged in these conversations for years. My oldest child started attending board meetings with me at 7 months old, about 8 years ago. I spoke out against wasteful spending at that time. Some on the board might remember those discussions. Today, I return with my 2-year-old urging us to put education, especially early childhood education, ahead of non-essential capital projects. This brings me to my next topic. I am not against turf fields, but I do believe in smart financial planning. We are currently considering, I think the board might have approved it already, a $2 million capital expense on new turf and track replacement at the high school facility, which is still currently being paid for through bond payments, which will not expire for another 6 or 7 years. I don't know, I'm not a financial wizard, but it's kind of like, makes me think of buying a car with a 20-year loan and then deciding to trade it in halfway while still making payments on the original purchase. That's kind of how I feel with the track and the turf. And we hear about the need for that and the priority on that purchase and that expense and that investment, but it doesn't show the priority on the early childhood education end of it, and that's my concern. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time in the 10 you can't have that, my love. In the 10 years since the birth of turf in our district, we have yet to fully address capital projects. Yet here we are again with our hand out for another expensive turf project. Meanwhile, essential infrastructure needs, like replacing the aging windows at Wading River School, continue to go unaddressed. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge an issue that is equally, if not more important, school safety. And I'm encouraged to hear that the district is exploring additional ways to strengthen security measures. And generally speaking, you can count me as a fan of anything that will make our schools safer for our children. So thank you for putting an emphasis on that priority. Lastly, I want to commend the Space and Facilities Committee. I see you as an essential partner and advocate for our schools, not simply advisory, as some would like to suggest. Your work is critical in ensuring that our district makes informed, responsible, and forward-thinking decisions. Their insight and dedication are valued, and I encourage the board to continue engaging with the Space and Facilities Committee in future discussions. Let's focus on what matters most, educating all of our children, pre-K through 12th, and ensuring safe, adequate facilities across the district. Our youngest learners deserve a strong start, and we have a real opportunity to provide it. I appreciate your time, your consideration, and your dedication to our schools. Let's make the most of the resources available to us and prioritize what truly benefits our students. Thank you, and sorry about
Thank you. No, it's okay. Can I ask, one favor? Can I ask you to just state your name for the record?
Mike Iannucci.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
I'll add something.
Come on.
I just actually have maybe a suggestion.
Sure. Just state your name, please. For the.
Okay, related.
Yep.
My name's Danielle Morgan-Besser. I have 2 daughters. One is in Miller Ave right now. So we did not get to capitalize on past UPKs because we just moved to this district last year. But I know that 2 other districts that we were a part of were able to kind of supplement some of the funding with the parents. So they would provide the UPK program. Obviously, if they didn't get accepted into the lottery, the parents were then picking up the, whatever amount per month that they were needed. It was at a deduction rate. Obviously, private preschools and daycares are much more money. So that was helping families with their own budgets. So is that something that could also be implemented if full, 100% coverage of the funds isn't possible for families?
Being upfront, I don't think that's possible, but I'll turn to.
I know we did ask that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't
About the
use.
shortfall.
I don't think it used in the grants.
Why not let the
to
parents
pass
pay the
on,
difference, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
It's
I was
either-
thinking, like maybe
That would be
if
smart. Charge it
if
all.
there was like a percentage of
That would
dollars.
be a smart idea, unfortunately.
You can't. It'd be great if we were a pass-through, and we could pass through lottery-based to $5,400 to families to make their own choice, and that's
Right.
another option.
Yeah.
To select a UPK program locally.
Local politics, or I should say federal politics right now, that if the program is not offered in your district, it will be the district's responsibility to then cut a check to those families to use that money for outside pre-K. So that's in the works already.
Sure.
So that could be in your foreshadow where you're going to be almost responsible for paying the community anyway, regardless of if you have the program or not.
Be great to pass the money out to families. And,
Yeah, that would
and
be
let them
amazing.
self-select
I would
a
love that.
program and
Take the whole
benefit
500,
from it.
that would
but-
be wonderful.
Push it forward.
And that's up to the federal, but that's not at our level.
Yeah.
So here's a suggestion, just real quick.
I'm sorry, just
So-
in the past, you should
oh.
know that with the two districts that I knew, it was through the SCOPE program. The
Got
SCOPE
it.
program
Makes
was-
sense.
Yeah.
So Ms. Sidewitz Burns, who's on our legislative committee and a huge advocacy effort toward UPK, and Ms. Singer, who I've gotten to know through emails.
Yes.
Please introduce yourselves, and I'd encourage you, this is legislative time right now in New York State. Our assembly person and our state senator are gathered in Albany, coming up right now to do the state budget. This is probably a pretty good time to continue with your advocacy by calling, writing, and then we I'm putting you on the spot, I forgot, when are we meeting with the
Early,
legislative?
early March, we'll meet with
Okay.
the legislators, but this is,
Revisit as far as the Board of Ed doing the same on your part, trying to brainstorm potential space in the district. There has to be space. If every local community can have it, there has to be space. So we put it on you to brainstorm space in your district and bring that to the
100%.
next meeting where it can be addressed.
And if we can find a space solution, would the board be willing to step up and put the funding there for it?
So this really isn't necessarily a board challenge. It was a space, we've challenged administration, correct me if I'm wrong, the board's all here. We've challenged administration to look at space and facilities and where we are. Where in certain buildings, we really are full up in the elementary schools at this point.
I think
don't think
to
there's
keep,
space
to keep class sizes where they are, at the K through 5 level, I think, where we are right now with enrollment, might be one of the only solutions would be to change the
Class
dynamic
size.
of class size,
Increase the class
for that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Poole, there's just one idea that I don't want to
Thank you,
leave
thank
lingering,
you.
just the idea of the turf replacement, that it's not needed.
Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit about a turf life and the requirements to replace the field?
So I'm
in
going
order
to
for
turn over to
not be
Mr. Arcuri
condemned?
Mr. Arcuri in a second.
Okay.
But I do know at the next meeting, how the Space and Facilities Committee recommended the use of the 2021 reserve to take care of some of the projects, including the Wading River windows. It does include the turf field technology, ceilings and lighting, casework, but that'll be a full presentation from Mr.
Okay.
Arcuri at the next meeting. But I will ask Mr. Arcuri to talk about the lifespan of a turf field, why the timing to identify the funding is now, even though it won't happen now, and that is just to make sure that the existing turf field is healthy and safe for a student play.
So the average life for a turf field is between 12 years, and then the max is up to 14 years. So in order to begin planning for a turf replacement project, it is a 2-year process. We first have to get voter-approved funding for that particular project. After funding is secured, then there is a set of drawings designed, sent up to the state for approval, which is about a 6 to 8 month process, depending upon when you submit the application. And then after that, you then go out to public bid, awarded to a contractor. So in order to have the funding in place, permits in place, so that the second the graduation ceremony ends at the end of June, we could quickly tear out the field before practice begins the second week of August. So yes, we are asking voter approval to secure funding while there is still approximately 2 years useful life on the field. We don't plan on changing the field for at least those 2 years. So again, the turf is a very tricky process, because if it begins to fail, it fails because of the ultraviolet rays from the sun, and then it starts to break down. Once that actually starts, you cannot make repairs to it. So you really need to have the funding there, so that before it starts to fail, and then I have to take it out of use, we could proactively replace it, which is gauged for summer of 27 would be the earliest that I could anticipate us doing the field. Latest is summer of '29. So that's the plan for that.
Thank you, I think that's an important distinction, thank you.
Sure.
We're good? Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Okay. May I take a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Katie, second, Jamel. All in favor? 6-0. Good night, everyone. Thank you.